Digital transformation has never been more critical to the success of organizations across the globe. Many organizations use a patchwork of point solutions and legacy systems that create inefficient silos and bottlenecks. Introducing Process Maker, our award-winning platform for digital process automation, built to empower your organization and accelerate your digital transformation. Use Process Maker's low-code BPMN 2.0 compliant process modeler to design, digitize, and automate your business processes. Create dashboards and charts from your pre-configured queries of your business data to monitor business activity and track KPIs. Easily design elegant forms with drag and drop functionality for use in your workflows and tailor them to suit your needs. Enforce organizational governance with Process Maker's more intuitive permission management system. Incorporate custom-built connectors to third-party applications and systems, or integrate with our growing list of technology partners. Kickstart your digital transformation today with the Process Maker platform.
P2 Energy Solutions is a software company focused exclusively on upstream oil and gas. Many of our solutions are standalone and really weren't built to integrate with each other.
Could you give us a little background as to what P2's objective was getting in business with Process Maker?
I think, just like any other company, P2 is always looking for how can we provide more value to our customers and provide more capability to our clients, as well as obviously new revenue streams and being able to compete against new technologies or new competitors that have entered the market on newer technologies. And so, continue to sell more and keep our clients happy and provide more value to our clients. That's our objective.
You can just support your existing business. This is basically adding minimum amount of technology to do the same things that you were doing before. This is purely a survival model. But if you have a unique product or service, if you have a monopoly in a certain market, or if you have really loyal customers, then that might be enough. Now, the next phase is you could look at improving your business. You're offering the same products or services, but you're doing it in a much better way. So this is going to give you better resilience to future disruptions. It's going to improve customer satisfaction. That's a big part of it. And it shifts you from just surviving into starting into the thriving end of the spectrum here. Now, if we look at the most sort of radical view, is you can innovate now. You can expand the products and services that you offer, or you can move into completely new markets. So this is what's going to let you leapfrog over your competition and really thrive as we emerge from this pandemic, not just survive.
Digital transformation has never been more critical to the success of organizations across the globe. Many organizations use a patchwork of point solutions and legacy systems that create inefficient silos and bottlenecks. Introducing Process Maker, our award-winning platform for digital process automation, built to empower your organization and accelerate your digital transformation. Use Process Maker's low-code BPMN 2.0 compliant process modeler to design, digitize, and automate your business processes. Create dashboards and charts from your pre-configured queries of your business data to monitor business activity and track KPIs. Easily design elegant forms with drag and drop functionality for use in your workflows and tailor them to suit your needs. Enforce organizational governance with Process Maker's more intuitive permission management system. Incorporate custom-built connectors to third-party applications and systems, or integrate with our growing list of technology partners. Kickstart your digital transformation today with the Process Maker platform.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar session. Today we'll be looking at the importance of automation and data localization in the telecommunications industry. My name is Nelly from Transform Africa. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. Please feel free to interact with us throughout this session. You can use the question function on your device, or you can chat to us to ask any questions or comment on this topic of discussion today. We are hosting this webinar session in partnership with Process Maker and Indicus. Just to give you a background of who our partners are, Process Maker is a solution that orchestrates the flow of data between systems and people so that organizations can reach their full potential. Process Maker has bases in the US, South America, and Europe. They are a leading force in the world of workflow, business process automation, and low code. They have deployed their solutions across various industries, including banking, higher education, telecoms, and tech, healthcare, insurance, manufacturing, government, and in countries across the globe, including for banks here in Nigeria. Indicus. Now, Indicus is a fast-growing cloud solutions company that works with service providers, including telcos, ISPs, and data center providers globally, and enables them to build a profitable in-country cloud business. Indicus provides a 360-degree solution covering software, technical services, and business consulting to enable the service providers to build and operate a profitable in-country cloud business. Indicus is trusted by leading telcos and ISPs globally, including Airtel, Vodafone, and Data Hub Cloud, to mention a few. Now we have a panel here that has so much experience across the tech industry, across so many other sectors, including banking, manufacturing, public sector. Just to introduce them to you, I'll start with Freddie Mercado. Freddie Mercado is the Director of Global Partnerships at Process Maker. He is an avid advocate of business transformation and has extensive experience in the SaaS and mobile industries. He is customer-oriented, and he has used his experience in helping so many customers to deliver flawless customer experience. Freddie has led and implemented business models that have helped many technology-oriented companies. Thank you so much for joining us, Freddie. Moving on to Mr. Adesina. Great. Mr. Adesina Adekore. Mr. Adesina has over 27 years experience in broadcasting, telecoms, satellite, construction, IP, and technology management and consulting. He has experience in breaking down technical problems and effective solutions. He has also managed and ran advanced specialized solutions in the UK, Canada, and Nigeria for the past 21 years, doing close to 150 projects in broadcast, telecoms, engineering, renewables, satellite, engineering, and IP-based services. Mr. Kabiru Mohammed, popularly known as Mo, is our founder here at Transform Africa. He has a vast experience across the ICT sector, specializing in project management and ICT training. He's also a business mentor, mentoring many young people and businesses across Africa. He brings to the table various many years of experience across various solutions, across various sectors, and has worked in companies here in Nigeria and in South Africa. Mr. Anthony Odion is our sales manager for the public sector here at Transform Africa. He has a wide range of experience across various industries here in Nigeria, in the tech space, in public sector, and also in engineering. So the last, but definitely not the least, our director of sales, Mr. Abayomi Olumu, also has years of experience in the tech space, in across various companies here in Nigeria and in the UK. And I believe our panel would share more knowledge with us as we continue with today's session. So thank you all so much for joining us. We'll continue to interact with you throughout the session with a short pause here and there. And as we close, we'll also have a short survey. Please kindly fill that in. It will just take you 1 minute to complete it. Now, moving on to our guest speaker, whom we've just introduced, Mr. Adesina Adekore. He will be sharing with us his experience when it comes to business process automation and data localization here in Nigeria across the various industries that he has been involved with. At this point, I'll be handing over to you, Mr. Adesina. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
All right. So, like I've been introduced, my name is Adesina Adekore. I have a short time, so I'm just probably going to go straight to the key points. One of the things that really shocked me when I began to do projects in Nigeria was basically how you have to almost do everything in an analog way. And when I was the service engineer for a company in the UK based out of Warrington, we did a lot of business automation. I'm talking like 20 years ago, and everything was a process. You had a way whereby you got your job ticket. You had a way whereby repairs were sent to you, and you had to file your reporting. We had a laptop. We could look at metrics. We could look at so many things. The old system was automated, and that was because at that time, SCS was a contractor to BSkyB, one of the biggest satellite TV companies in the world. When I then moved also to Canada, I did some contract job with the second biggest telco in Canada called Telus. And I did contract as an I and R engineer, fiber, so many things. And I was seeing processes again. Everything was processed from the first to the provisioning of the lines. If there was a fault, the auditing, the reporting, the revisit, everything was business automated. It could run by itself. And so coming over to Nigeria, they have a lot of problems because almost everything is analog, still carrying files. And you take, for example, about a couple of years back, we were consultant to one of the subcontractors managing the cell sites for the telcos. And we were to check why the renewables installed, the hybrid system installed in some of those sites were not really optimized. And we went to 5 sites in Ibadan to optimize it. I was shocked also because everything was analog. Nothing was automated, nothing. The battery, for example, the battery management system at the sites, they had a provision for remote sensor, remote reporting, but it was shut down. Nothing was being reported. So sometimes you could have a cell site go down and nobody would really know, except the telco then says, you know what, we're getting an alarm from our switch there. Then will the site manager say, oh, something is wrong. Ordinarily, the hybrid system, the BMS, the generators there, they should have a way whereby you have a business automation or business process whereby remote reporting could be done. The same thing when you are overseas. You take, for example, if you had an issue with your cell phone number, but from the moment you make a call, it's a process. Everything is really automated. So it's a desire of my heart that we could see a lot of automation coming to Nigeria, coming to into businesses, coming to so many things, coming to traffic management. We have traffic lights are analog, nothing automated there. Yes, you could say, oh, then it comes on green at so second, comes on red at so second, but that's not really the business automation. So in telco, we see that there is a serious need. And the truth of the matter is, most of the losses that the telcos are having is basically based on the fact that a lot of their system is still analog. It allows inefficiency. It allows theft. It allows losses. And the telcos, if they really sat down and then if they could speak to themselves and bring in real people that understand business consulting and tell them this is the amount of losses you're having just because most and the critical parts of your system is not automated. So it's not, it's something that must happen. When it will happen in Nigeria, I do not know. Whether it's government system, I do not know. You take an example before I quickly talk about data localization. FIRS in Nigeria, and FIRS is like the IRS in the US or the CRA in Canada or the HMRC in the UK. So FIRS in Nigeria, they just said, you know, last year, we're going to automate stuff. So whereas till last year, when you want to file your VAT monthly or you wanted to file your company tax, you had to do everything by paper. You would fill a paper, you would take it to their office, they would look at it, and then they would try to do some little bit of digitalization, automation, which wasn't getting fast. So last year they said, no more paper, everything has to be there. So someone like me say, you know, I've got to file my taxes. So I filed it for last year, only to be told, you know what, though you filed for 2020 manually, right? You still need to go and file that digitally. So you are going to be filing twice, digital and manually. And that alone created problem. It took 4 months before FIRS could solve that. And while I was in the office of the tax controller, I told him, you know, this is such an easy problem. I said, all you needed to do was to tell us to take our TCC number, tax certificate number, and put it into a system, and the database will run an SQL search. And if it exists there, it just says, yes, this has been filed. So we have a lot to do as a country in terms of business of automation, whether it's the ports, whether it's the hospitals, and so much more. Data localization. This is something that personally I have really looked at in the past. How is it going to work? The people who design the policy, do they really understand what it takes to localize data in Nigeria? For example, security is very crucial. How do you secure a data center? Because I've been to data center in Nigeria. I wouldn't mention name. I've been to one of the biggest data centers in Nigeria. I've gone there to do things, and sometimes I would just laugh at the kind of security that they put there. And I've been to data center in the UK. ITV has a data center in Norwich. I've been there. ITV is the second biggest TV company in the UK, and I saw how things were running there. And I've been to Telos data centers and Telos CO in Canada. I've seen how things are run there. So when the government says, you know what, you need to localize data, my question, and the question I still ask even till now, that I would like to ask whoever came up with those policies, whether it's NITA, whether it's NCC, or whether it is the Ministry of Communication, is, do you really know the requirements that it takes to localize data in a country, the physical security, the cyber security, the utility provision, the power, the staff, and everything? Do you really know what it takes? So at the back of my mind, I see all those problems. And I say to myself sometimes, and I say, the government is telling banks to localize data in Nigeria, but what are the provisions that you have put there? You take as an example, in terms of utility, a data center must always have power. One of the data centers in a place called Ikeja, every time I go there, you will see three huge generators always on. So the cost of it, who bears the cost? Will you then say, okay, for first 5 years, we will give you tax rebate to be able to do that? But the other argument on the other side says, well, for pride's sake, for integrity's sake, to be sure that people are not just playing with our data. It's good for it to be in Nigeria. Yes, it's good for it to be in Nigeria, but what are the benefits? What's the cost benefit analysis for it? Is it something for the future? Do we even have the staff to do it? Take as an example, what does it make sense to localize data in Nigeria and then you're paying somebody in Singapore, someone in India to remotely log in to maintain the server for you? What's the benefit of that? So before we can say, okay, let's make this a national policy, we have to first sit down and say, what do we need to get this thing done? And all those things, we do not have them. Even MTN and Airtel and Globacom, when you go to those telcos, you see a lot of foreigners there. So my question is this: if you localize data into Nigeria and you have an Indian man running it for you, as you have probably with Airtel, or as you have probably with Globacom, what stops him from stealing the same data? And it's a lot easier for him because most of the time, the people who are even regulating them have got no clue what they are doing. So let me round up by saying this. The two companies, Indicos and Process Maker, I'm hoping that you can have a very good headway into Nigeria, but the challenges are there, and it takes a lot of navigation to pass through those challenges. Many times when I go to a place to do anything, the Nigerians there look at me and the first thing they tell me is that, Oga, this is not Canada. This is the way we do our things here. So that's the mentality that you're bringing processes to. You're telling the officials of PHCN and saying your technicians that go out on a fault, they need to have an app. And what does the app do? The app says, you know what, when there is a fault, instead of me going to complain physically, the system is automated so much that it looks at the GPS coordinates of that technician and says, you are closest there, assigns that automatically. But here is a guy telling you, that's not the way we do things. We have our way of doing things. So you have the culture, you have the social, the physical, you have the financials and everything that are challenges. But I know if we all sit down and look at all this, we might be able to make baby steps, and then with strength and courage, be able to do more. So I welcome you to this webinar, and I believe that we're discussing the present and the future and probably the past of Nigeria and telco. And I'm hoping that from this webinar, we can develop a culture and a desire to automate a lot of our business and also see how data localization can work. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Adeshina. Thank you for sharing your experience with relation to this topic that we're discussing today. I think you have shared an incredible amount of information in such a short time. And, you know, when we're looking at automation, addressing this issue is not only a resolve for the enterprise, because when you are talking, for example, about our internal revenue provider or our internal revenue organization and filing taxes, automation would not only make the process less cumbersome for them, but it also spills over to the customers, right? The clients, the public at large. All the processes that take us such a long time to do is so manual. Automation would make it much quicker for us to process. Now, when we talked about data localization, one of the things that you mentioned is that the industries have to work together. The telecom industry, for example, has to work together, right? And more than that, regulators need to ensure that there are structures in place. They need to ask what regulations do we have in place to address data localization and ensure that it's not only done the right way, but it's done successfully. So thank you so much for that, sir. At this point, we'll now be moving on to a presentation on Process Maker. So just to give us an overview of who Process Maker is, what they do, and why automation, especially business process automation, is all the hype, all the talk these days. So I'll be handing over to Mo to take us through Process Maker. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Great introduction. Great to be here, really, to talk about process automation. This is a very important, discussion today, especially with the problems that we have currently globally, right, and specifically in Nigeria. Also specifically in Africa, right? Nelly has introduced Process Maker and the fact that they are a leader in the process automation sphere, and with various case studies and implementation that have been done here in Nigeria in some of our big banks, and also a couple of other sectors. Now, to talk about this really is to say that process automation, we need to see it as a guide, right, to how we manage our processes within the organization. So just moving on, basically, right, what we are talking about is what is really business process automation, right? Most organizations have, an overflow of procedures and processes, right? And some of these procedures and processes, right, are linked to regulations as well, right? Because if you look at the telecommunication industry, right, there is a highly regulated industry, right? Just because of the fact that, they are communicating over a certain frequency that has been approved by the Nigerian Communication NCC, right? They are regulated. So in order to ensure that they don't also get through fines and they don't get shut down, they have to ensure that their processes are automated, right? So that you can be guaranteed that the process will be followed, sufficiently all the time, right? Adequately all the time, because that's what you also want to measure. You want to measure that, yeah, you have a process, but the process is being adhered to every time it is implemented, right? Departments as well, they often operate independently, which is normal, right? But also with process, it's easy to to have a general overview what is going on within the organization or within the telecommunication industry. Now, if you look at the telecoms, right, they handle high level of the requests, right, from their customers, because they face customers directly and they sell directly to customers, right? In recent time, over the past 10 years or 15 years, we start having the opportunity to have for them to start focusing on enterprise, providing enterprise related services and carving out certain services that that are unique for enterprise, content-based services and all that. But the majority of their customers are, are people like you and I. So simply means that how do we get services? How do we ensure that we get the services that we are paying for? And that is where you have so many regulations around that to ensure that these things are being done properly. Now, also visibility as well to processes, is also very, very important, because you need to ensure that the only way somebody's going to trust the process, like for example, when I call one of the telecommunication service provider, right? What I want the agent to tell me is that, yeah, they are going to remember to call me. Are you sure you're going to call me? Well, the person tried to guarantee that he's going to call me, but with a process that is reliable, right? Once I experience that, yeah, this person is going to call me at 2 p.m. and they call me at 2 p.m., then it simply means that there's a reliability in the process. I can now begin to trust that process, and you can't necessarily trust this process, right? So these are some of the things that we need to look at, right, in process automation. Now, just moving on, you would begin to realize that this processes cuts across various areas, right? Starting from human resource to sales to accounting to administration. All this interdepartment, they have to function to be able to deliver value to the end customer, right? In this case. So if there is a bottleneck in the processes, if there is silo processes, then when for example, now when you are going from a call to a next call, right, you are speaking to somebody around your line not functioning properly or your data not functioning properly. They tell you, oh, your data is not functioning properly. It's as a result of billing, right? So now when you are now push the billing department, well, there's no that continuity, meaning that it's either the process is silo or there's a missing link in data transmission across the process, right? So very, very important. So, I mean, just moving on, you would notice that why are we talking about process maker? Why are we saying process maker? And in very simple term, right? Imagine for a second that you can deliver your process, an enterprise grade process with low code, right? That's number one, low code, meaning that you don't have to invest a whole lot in your developers, but again, you can still have your developers, but their work is pretty much already done. Perhaps they might just be customizing, maybe look and feel, maybe the UI UX, maybe, but the core engine, right, is low code, intelligent and interactive, an intuitive workflow automated process, right? So this is really, really very powerful because it can get a process up and running between minutes, right? That means you can design your process, get it live between minutes. But at the same token as well, if the process is dynamic, meaning that you can go to the same process and make a change, right? And it will be reflective instantaneously, right? So that means you don't have a process where you are rigid on a particular process. You have to wait for somebody to make a change. Really, you can really empower the owners of the change to be able to make that change. Of course, within the governance of the organization, right? Within the change management process that the organization has in place, right? In this case, the telecommunication space, right? So what are we saying here? With telecommunication, right? We are saying you can automate the process. Telecommunication has a whole lot of processes, right? That ranging from the little to complex. All that can be automated, and it can be a gradual process. You can look at, first of all, your high impactful process and automate it, right? Meaning that the process that generates the highest revenue, right? You can target that, get that sorted out, because that is the area you cannot joke around with, right? You have to ensure that process is well done so that you don't reduce your revenue, right? Because if I'm calling one provider and it's not reaching me, I can switch to another provider, right? Because I'm frustrated or whatever the case might be. So you want to make sure that all processes related to revenue are related. So moving on. So just moving on to just look at Why process maker? Like I've said before, automate approval-based process across departments and system, right? Empower business users from HR to run their own workflows or to run their own processes, right? So very, very intuitive, very, very simple to go, right? So basically, this is how we can look at the key features of process maker, right? From your process modeler to your form builder, right? Your form builder, like I said, is very interactive, meaning that you can really do some validations, right? A lot of validations, interacting with external and internal systems, to be able to then, determine where the process would go, right? And you can also action by email, and you have the dashboard, which is very important because the dashboard tells you how many processes you are running, how many were successful, if there's any failure, why, if there's any delay in maybe approvals or where the process is currently stuck, you will be able to know and be able to address it within business, right? And it's also very easy to report, because if I say, give me a report of how many people applied for a modem to be provisioned, how many people apply for them, how many people have successfully received their modem, how many people are still waiting for approval, so you should be able to know really what is going on from your process perspective, because that is where you are making money from, right? That is where you are making money from, right? So again, you can then monitor business activity, your business activity monitoring, just to see where you need to improve, where you need to upgrade a bit or change or adjust processes, right? Your scripting engine is also available for you. And finally, your process validation engine is also available for you. So this is why, these are some of the key features of Process Maker, right? Now, like we spoke about, apart from the telecommunication industry, right, you can still, Process Maker is still highly applicable to banking, which is your FSI, your government, your healthcare, manufacturing, insurance, higher education, OEM, and also white labor. So what we're trying to say here is that Process Maker, the principle can really be transferable to all the other sector. And even within the telecommunication space, there's a huge interaction between banking, there's a huge interaction between government, there's a huge interaction between healthcare, there's a huge interaction between insurance, manufacturing. All these are a telecommunication company's clients, right? So that means, imagine a world where all the processes are automated, interconnected, secured, right? Secured, and people can really be able to move from one process to another within the same organization, interconnecting with multiple organizations, to achieve, the desired outcome, which is to get value to the end customer. Because at the end of the day, the end customer needs to receive value. What does value mean? Value mean that right? You receive your services very faster. You get value for the money you are paying for the service, right? You are able to select from a quality perspective what service you want, what services you don't want, right? You're really able to get faster services, right? So basically, just to summarize, right? Just to summarize, right? You have, from a process automation perspective, you have a commonly automated telecom and tech workflow process, right? So, for example, I think I spoke about this quite extensively. Your IT service request, right? You are receiving multiple requests from your your end customer, right? And this is voluminous. I can imagine the number of calls that a telecommunication company receive on a daily basis is massive, right? On a daily basis. I've had the opportunity to manage huge service desk, right? And at some point in a month, we clock close to around about 50,000 calls. But the point here is that this is really the high impactful area. It's not just receiving the calls that we're interested with Process Maker. It's automating the process of the client or the customer getting the service, right? Let's say, for example, for a client to get a service, they will have to go through 4 processes, 4 steps, or 4 departments, or four. So in that case, they should be able to go from process A to B to C to D seamlessly and get the outcome that they want within a reasonable time frame. right? So let's don't misconstrue this for just service requests alone, you calling the telecommunication company. No, we are talking about not just calling, right? Calling can be handled, but however, the process of getting that request, the self-service process, or any other process related to you receiving the services. Also, you have your new line creation requests. You have your SAP integrated purchase request, vacation requests, you know, additional service requests. Even telecommunication company, they do a lot of RFPs, right? They engage with a lot of vendors, right? That process can also be cumbersome because there's a dependency for them to provide services to their end customers, because they will use those vendors, those installers, or those field engineers to go and deliver services to their clients, to their customers. So it simply means that that process to deal with your what do you call it, with your vendors, it's also a huge process on its own, right? It's massive, and you can imagine the kind of vendors that the telecommunication company have on their database on their requests, right? So basically what we are saying really is that with process automation, right, you are able to go through various steps, right? Step one, you plan your process, right? I always like to say that you don't, most people, they adjust their processes based on convenience. Okay, well, I'm the boss now, right? So the process must be A, B, C, D. And the new boss come, no, the process must be A, C, D, E. So what they are doing in that case is that they are not really aligning their processes to what is best for the organization, what would bring the organization more revenue, what would avert the organization from penalty or fines. They are probably implementing the process based on either personal or either their own limited experience. What you should do really when you are planning your process is that you should ensure that you look at your documented process, you look at your governance, you look at your subject matter experts, you ensure that you come up with a process that aligns to what I was just talking about, right? Then step number two, you design and diagram your process. You then begin, step three, you begin to execute your process. Step four, you measure, monitor, and step five, you begin to refine, right? So basically, this is really, impactful in the sense that we are talking here about process automation with Process Maker and how powerful the solution is. We have a case study here, right? A success story from Telefonica, right? In North, I'm just trying to get that out, in Central America, right? Central America, right? So with Telefonica, right? They were they have a couple of problems in terms of having manual processes. They delivered cloud services, internet, landline activation. So you can see this landline activation, although landline sounds a bit old in the Nigerian context, but some organizations still use the landline, right, in various forms, right? I think most of the telecommunication company, they still provide fixed desk phone, but through wireless or whatever the case might be, right? But the process still remains the same, right? So landline activation. So that means with the first point here, cloud services, internet, landline, that means they are receiving huge number of requests, right? And they were performing those requests manually. So that means they could not scale, right? They could not automate, they could not really grow, from a point of view. Now they were also looking at enterprise mobile service plan activation, financial workflow, contract and legal document management, service provider management, and contract management. So these are some of the processes that were automated, right, with Telefonica, right? And it's working very, very well for them in the telecommunication space, right? And we also have New Viatel PC as well. They do a lot of purchase requests, right? And I'm sure we all know what purchase request is, right? I mean, they do a lot of buying. I think this is what I spoke about, right? They buy a lot, right? Because, for example, maybe they are buying phones for their customers, because most of the service providers now are now packaging their services bundled with prepaid, with monthly payment for your phones, monthly payment for your laptops, bundle with data, right, or bundle with other services, right? So that means they will be doing a lot of purchase requests to get to be able to fulfill to their end customers, right? So at this juncture, I would just like to conclude to say that process automation is something that the telecommunication industry to look at. Our keynote speaker, highlight a number of issues, right, pertaining this industry. But this issues is not just limited to the telecommunication industry, but can also be transferred to other industries as well. And there's an interrelationship between other industries, because if you look at your contract and legal management, we all do contract and legal management, right? We all want to look at financial workflow, so there are a few things that are similar across multiple industries and sector. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mo, for taking us through process automation with Process Maker. We just have a quick poll for everyone to go through. Please just take a few seconds to just answer that poll that will show up shortly on your screen. Thank you. All right, thank you so much for your responses. I can see it's sort of balanced, right? It's sort of balanced with some people saying overhead expenses, some leaning more towards low productivity, and it's a balance also with enhanced risk of errors. So we're now just going to be moving on to Indicas, right, to touch on data localization. With an increasing focus and regulations coming in on data localizations, not just here in Nigeria, but also globally, there is a massive opportunity for telecom service providers to set up an in-country public cloud and offer cloud services to local enterprises and SMBs. So I'm just going to be handing over back to Mo to take us through data localization. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So again, we are coming to talk about the importance of data localization, because as we talk about process automation, it is very critical that we're able to answer the questions of data as well. And that's one of the beauty around Process Maker. Process Maker is able to meet the data localization requirement for the telecommunication industry or any industry that requires this process to be localized in country, right? What do we actually mean by this? We simply means that your data would remain in country and would not be, and maybe only the processing will be happening on the cloud, but however, though, your data would reside in country. So you would have the both benefit of enjoying the scalability of the Process Maker engine. At the same token as well, you would also then have what do you call it? You also then have the benefit of having your data local. But let's talk about data localization with Indicas, right? I mean, I don't need to say this. You can see it from the slide. But data is very, very important, right? It's become very, very important, and it's been one of the things that has been used even in recent time, even with what is happening between Ukraine and Russia, right? When they are trying to implement what they call it sanction, you can see most of the highly impactful sanctions are the ones that are driven by data, right? Especially the one around SWIFT, right? Where the communication around sending money, was now disabled internationally for Russia, right? But the point here is that you can see that data is critical, right? Data, ownership of data is very critical, and more governments are beginning to realize this, and hence they are beginning to put regulations in place to ensure that some of the critical data are now beginning to stay localized, right? But this is going to be a journey for us in Nigeria and even in Africa. I believe it's going to be a journey, but it's a good space for us to be in, so that we can start taking ownership of our data. Basically, if you look at what is happening really from a localization perspective, you would notice that companies, organizations wants to have data protection and privacy laws, around the country. So if you look at in the diagram here, you have with countries that are highly legislated, you have your draft legislation, no data, right? So again, you see some countries don't have any data locally, and now this is where the opportunity then lies. Some have an hybrid, some are beginning only to look at their processes, right? Their legislation. They're beginning to look at some of their policies for data localization. So basically, the key driver really for data localization, we can pin it to three main areas. First of all, data residency, right? If you look at most telecommunication companies would also want to have their own cloud platform, right? Because it's easy for them to attach certain services closer to home for their clients. Because if you are consuming certain services from very far, the latency will be very high. So that means the only way for telecommunication company to reduce the latency is to then have cloud services at the edge, right? Closer to their customers. So that's the second point, which is low latency, right? But the third point for them is localized billing. You also want to be able to control you want to be able to fix the bill that your client receive, right? Which is very, very important. You have to be able to fix it, because if you go with a public cloud or one of the hyperscaler, what will happen is that as the exchange rate fluctuates, that means the bill to the end customer would also equally fluctuate. And no customer wants to have a surprise monthly consumption of a huge amount, right? So, for example, if you are consuming a process through process automation, right, you want to ensure that also the services that you are charging back to your customer, right, stays the same and stays fixed, right? So that's why we are also talking about data localization, right? Because it will address really that concern, or these three areas: data residency, which is what we have spoken about, low latency, and of course localized billing. So I would just quickly move to this diagram, right, that shows really the flexibility of you building a private cloud with Indicas, right, through the Indicas software, right? You are able to either get your what they call it, your commodity hardware, right, your open stack hardware, your storage, your server, your network equipment, and all can then be consolidated, right? And then you can go with two options, right? Either you are going the open stack or you are going the closed stack, right? So that's the flexibility that you have. It's either you want to go with your VMware or your Hyper-V, any of your closed stack where you'll be paying, for usage, or you can decide to use like the AWS style, which is open stack, right? And then one of the most important things there is that you then have your cloud and container orchestration, right? You then also have your self-service, meaning that you can provision any resources that you want automatically, similarly to the way you have it on AWS, right? The interface will be there, but the beauty here is that you can then scale. You can then scale your platform. So, giving you a use case, you want to deploy process automation for a telecommunication industry. You go with Process Maker. You have all your processes, draft planned. When it comes to you implementing, right? When you come to you implementing, you would then think about your resources. Do I want to do it on the cloud, or do I want to do it on a public cloud, or do I want to do it on a private cloud environment? So you have that option now for us to build you a private cloud, right? And you run your process maker off your infrastructure. And you can start with one host, or you can scale. Yeah, you can scale as best as you can based on what you are trying to achieve, right? So basically, this is what we are trying to say by data localization. We spoke about 3 points really, right? Your data residency, right? Your latency, right? And your localized billing. Very, very important. These are the 3 value proposition really, right? And the one that tops it up is data localization, data residency. Because eventually, right, we know that organization in the future, even now, have to begin to comply to data localization or data residency regulations and laws, right? So it's good for organizations to begin to think, even if you want to go, for example, your public cloud through a hyperscaler, you can still achieve a hybrid model, right? Just to ensure that at least you have redundancy and you can easily swiftly change to the regulation that is in vogue. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to me. We would share some of these materials with you so that you can go through it at your time as well. But please feel free to ask any questions. We're now going into the panel discussion. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mo, for taking us through data localization. As you were discussing this solution Indicus, right? Just to sum it up, Indicus is a turnkey solution covering the entire stack of virtualization, containerization, orchestration, and built on open source technology, right? That's very key for Indicus, as you can see also on the stack architecture that we are looking at. So I'll just like to ask you to just go through a quick poll before we go into the panel discussion. Thank you. All right, thank you so much for going through our poll. I see most of the responses are on ensuring greater accountability for big companies. And then there's a split response between minimizing conflicts of jurisdiction and also justice in cases of data breaches. So moving on to our panel discussion. Our first question here is going to be going to Mr. Adeshina. And this question is, what are steps which telcos and vendors can put in place to reassure the Nigerian public that localization of data is safer than it being stored offshore? So, Mr. Adeshina, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I think okay, just checking the time. So the first thing that you need to look at is the physical access and physical security. I give you a quick example. When I was in the UK, there was a day that I needed to go support a facility in a defense facility, the DoD. The security, the checks. I'm not just talking about the DSS just getting your name to, for getting sake. The checks, the security. Before I got there, they knew I was coming. The biometrics, everything. And that was because I was entering a facility that belongs to the DoD. And in there were data and there were so many things. In fact, the physical access, when I say physical access, I'm saying that there is a first gate you get to. You get your name, you give them your government issued ID. Then you pass that gate. Then the second gate you get into, there they do more checks that you are the person before you even get in to even get a pass. And that's the pass that shows your name for you to get into because it's security. Now, before you can talk about data localization and what do we need to do, there must first be that understanding that data is power, that data is probably the most powerful asset a country has. From data, you take, for example, from data of checking where do all the directors or for example, the DSS lives. If you get that data and you're a terrorist, you can wipe them out. So data is very crucial. It's essential. I will share this confidentially. Well, this is no longer confidential, but I was speaking to somebody that is very high in authority in Nigeria. And he told me a couple of years ago, an agency in Nigeria, a major agency that has our data, they had a data breach. They were breached from outside the country. And they were breached because the security that they had in place wasn't as strong as it should be. So what are the steps which telcos and vendors can put in place? It first starts from physical security. Then it starts also from cyber security. Then it goes on reliability, and reliability is where you talk about utility. That's where you talk about the HR. That's where you talk about that. Then also it comes to being open to audits, being open to external organizations auditing your process. Then lastly, it also comes to fairness, openness, and not covering stuff up. If you can put the 6 things in place, then I would say that we're ready for data localization in Nigeria. Without one of them, just one of them, you would have problems and serious problems because immediately, for example, data of all the high premium customer of a bank goes out, gets into the wrong person. They are open. They are open to be hacked. So these 6 things that I put in place, if we can get them in place, if they can come into effect, I think we can say that we are ready for data localization. Thank you.
Indeed, thank you so much. Indeed, we can't leave any one of those 6 components out. They're interrelated, and we need all of them to be in place effectively to make sure that we localize our data safely, right? So moving on to the next question. What are the trends and best practices when it comes to telecom industries automation, and how is Process Maker addressing this in Africa? So this question, I'll be posing it to Freddie. So Freddie, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nelly. This is a fantastic time that we're living on, as you all know, based on current events. The challenges that many industries are facing are tremendous, not to mention the market forces that are driving consumer behavior. So in that regard, Process Maker has been leading the effort to ensure that the best practices and the technology trends available for us to provide a world-class service are made available to our customers globally. From Sri Lanka, Central America, or the African continent, we have customers in the telecom industry working with Process Maker to ensure the availability and scalability of the services that they provide, whether it be a project to change copper to fiber or to address the challenges regarding the speed in which services are deployed. Like Mr. Adesina was mentioning earlier today, complying with regulation and being able to maintain the framework around the services and the customer response to incidents is paramount to Process Maker's value proposition. So we have a mix of services provided, whether it be on cloud, so to take advantage of the ubiquity that's provided through those services, or the fact that we comply with GDPR regulation in the European market or other territorial laws and mandates regarding the telecom industry. And to point to the Nigerian question on hand, we have made great investments in order to have process maker headcount and resources available locally, not only through partners, but directly from process makers. So since 2021, just last year, we have deployed a number of resources locally in Nigeria to better serve our customers. So the combination of cloud offering plus our local presence is just an example of how invested and committed we are to addressing the needs in Nigeria for process maker customers.
Indeed, thank you so much for that, Freddie. I believe indeed Process Maker is forced a way forward to make sure that automation is done in accordance to industry best practices and also international best practices. Now, moving on to the third question. For a business that is not yet invested in process automation, where would you recommend that they start? So this question goes to Mr. Bayomi. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Nelly. It's been an interesting and fantastic session. So for businesses that are yet to invest in automation, so basically the first thing I will advise is as a business, be it a small business or a bigger business, a large enterprise. So for small businesses, you need to look at your overall goal and objectives. What do you want to achieve? And for example, the next financial year, FY 2023, how do you want to scale? To what extent do you want to scale? Then if you look at that, you might now need to look at reviewing your processes around what you are currently at, around adoption, or scaling in terms of getting more customers, scaling in terms of improving your overall operational, efficiency, and also look at reducing cost as well, if that's part of what would drive your overall goal. So in summary, I would say the first thing to do will be to look at your existing processes, look at how efficient they are. Are those processes going to take you to your goal, to make you achieve your goal within a particular timeline? What if they're automated? What if we've reduced some of the bottlenecks and some of the blockers? How will it, impact on your goal? So businesses need to look at this and look at these processes, review them, and look at how to make them better. Automation at times can, help in scaling in terms of generating, revenues, in terms of reducing costs. So we need to look at, as organizations, you need to look at that process. And for example, if you're finding it also a big challenge in understanding these processes, then you can actually contact Transform Africa. We are here to support you. We can take you through this journey and help you scale, and also to achieve your goal through automation. Thank you.
Thank you, Abayomi. Generally, we talk about efficiency and effectiveness, right? That's a major benefit of process automation. And just like Mo had said earlier on when he was presenting, some of the things that you might want to start with are your heavy processes, right? If you are looking at various processes and you're just wondering, where do I start? Perhaps your heaviest process, right, is the one where you might want to focus on. So moving on to this question, we're back to Freddie, right? It says, in terms of cost benefit analysis, the stage where Nigerian telcos are now, do we critically need business automation, and which areas are long overdue for business automation? Back to you, Freddie. Thank you.
Thank you, Nelly. Business automation can be deployed in all areas of a company. from customer-facing processes, customer onboarding, um, processing requests and whatnot, all the way back to the internal processes that relate to vendor management, human resources, and so on. So each company has a different challenge to face. Maybe a leading company has to reduce churn and be more aware of building on customer loyalty and ensuring that their current customer base is satisfied so that it can lead to additional growth. Whereas newcomers may be faced with market setting a foothold on a specific market and making a name of their own. So modernizing their processes could be a way to go. So the areas that are most challenging at this time have to do with regulation and compliance, as well as with financial strain. So in order for a company in the telecom sector to be better prepared to wage on the economic challenges that are coming about, any process that would lead to saving and cost reduction will be critical in the next couple of years in order to be able to maintain their economic health and financial state. That would be our main take based on the experience and the knowledge of the market as we go. Back to you, Nelly.
Thank you, thank you. So there we have it. I mean, if you are looking at two areas, regulation and compliance is one, and any area where you know you're experiencing financial strain and you need to make sure that you are saving and you are reducing your costs, that's where you need to focus your automation on. Now, moving on to the last question here, which I'll pose to Anthony. How can government and sector drive effective policies around automation and data localization? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nelly. The good news is that there are already a number of policy proposals on government decks across African countries. And one of the initiatives government in Nigeria has implemented in data privacy, example, is sensitive data cannot be hosted outside of Nigeria. However, government should have a policy to ensure automation and localization of medical records in Nigeria. If you agree with me, we have there's a whole lot of gap in Nigeria in terms of medical research, medical infrastructure, and all of that, also across Africa. So the objective of this is anywhere you travel to, one should be able to access his or own medical records for better treatment and good medical data. This will help increase skills in medical research, education system, technology advancement, lifelong learning, and many others. Thank you.
Yes, I think you summed it up very nicely. I don't even want to touch that response, but we've come to the end of our panel discussion. And as we are rounding up, we'll just drop one more poll question, right? Please, if you can just help address that poll question, would really appreciate very quickly. Thank you. All right. So in summary, I see most of us or some of us are yet to realize any automation from our service providers, right? Or enjoy automation from our service providers. So that means there are some gaps that are yet to be filled in this industry, the telecoms industry. But overall, I think we have had a fantastic discussion around these two areas, which are all the buzz these days, and for very good reason. automation, and why we need to localize our data. And we'll continue to have these discussions, right, and spill it over to other industries, right, because we can't just talk about localization in one sector or one industry without talking about the others, because some of the services that are offered in one industry, they spill over to another industry. So if we're going to automate one industry, there's definitely need to make sure that the next industry works as efficiently as the other one that is automated. And in terms of data localization, I think it's a topic that we are discussing much here in Nigeria, and I believe very soon we'll get to a point where we are enjoying having our data being localized. So thank you so much to our guest speaker for today, Mr. Adesina Adekore. Thank you so much to our panelists, Freddie Mekado, Bayomi Olomumo, Aliyu, Anthony Odion. In closing, I'll just say I thank you for attending. And I believe that most of the questions that you might have had have been addressed either through the presentations that we have done or through the panel discussion. Please feel free to reach out to us if you have any further questions relating to this topic or any other tech services. Reach out to us at services@transformafricalimited.com, or you can connect with us on our various social media platforms. Here you'll also be able to to stay up to date with our upcoming events as we discuss more tech solutions. So I bid you all a very good day, and hope to see you next time on our webinar sessions. From the rest of the team at Transform Africa, thank you very much and do have a great day.